Oh, well, looky what we have here. Welcome to the Joker Cave. Certainly not any jokes around here. What with all the seriousness of putting geeks in a round table about comic books. You're listening to The Pullbag After Dark.
Hello and welcome to The Pullbag. This is the first of hopefully 2 or 3 of these in 2016. This is an After Dark. The last After Dark we did, DC's universes were imploding on each other because they couldn't decide whether they wanted to be the New 52 or the DCU. Y-O-U. Oh, God, DC. I am, of course, TFG and Mike, and joining me for the first time since, I think, the first annual Marvelous March when we covered Man Out of Time and Planet Hulk is ComicRevolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, and you really have turned into a ComicRevolt at this point, haven't you?
Yeah.
No more movies for you.
It's easier to find time to read comics than it is to find time to go to the movies nowadays, so yeah.
Yep. So we did do an Origins for you, didn't we?
Way back
time ago. Yeah, a long time ago. So since then, what have you been reading? What have you been looking into as far as your comic habits?
Well, I've been reading a little bit of everything, really. I find myself currently getting kind of hooked on certain creators and certain artists and writers and going there right now. The book that probably I'm reading, I look forward the most each week is Southern Bastards by GCRN Image book. It's this crazy book about this town. It's kind of hard to explain, but it starts as like a Walking Tall type of story, turns into something a lot different. But yeah, so I'm reading that. I am reading some Marvel and DC stuff as well, getting it here and there. I've enjoyed a little bit a few of the new titles for Marvel. They relaunched their all new, all different, and sticking with a few DC stuff as well. But yeah, so I've kind of I just look at and see my new method is seeing what is being reviewed really well and checking it out, or if I see new issues are coming out, I'll try them, see if I'll like them enough to stick around. So I've been doing now a monthly. Well, I just did the first one for January, monthly blog at geekcastradio.com, where I'm just gonna kind of go down the comics I read that month, the ones that stuck out to me for good or bad reasons, and then any new series that I feel that are notable and should be recognized. So it's been enjoyment so far getting back in the comics.
Yeah. And in this first After Dark of 2016, you guys over at Talking in Circles did your top 5 comic book writers of all time in episode 95 this past week, and conversation got started between you and I in the comments of that podcast post about creator-owned versus licensed properties.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what this After Dark is, folks. It's creator-owned versus license. Just looking back at this conversation, I don't think you give IDW enough credit, because one of your comments was that the licensed properties usually only happen around a movie or...
No, what I was referring to is that, to kind of set this up, basically, yes, we were going back and indicating what comic companies we tend to gravitate towards, and I mentioned Image right now is probably I think kicking butt compared to everyone else. I think that's pretty synonymous, and Valiant's up there for me, Boom. And you brought up IDW, and my response was, my issue with IDW is that I think they rely too heavily on licensed products and don't do enough to promote their own individual creative titles compared to that of an Image, and that's why I wouldn't put them on the same level. And what I was referring to when it comes to licensed properties, and it's that often those licensed properties come with restrictions, especially if it is a licensed property regarding a movie that is within context. Like if you're doing a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars book and it's referring to the Abrams verse, they have to sign off on that. They have to sign off on pretty much everything you're doing. Yet you end up getting a comic that has to create characters that are the likenesses of those of those people. And when you do that, when you make artists do that to try to recreate real people, it tends to not work for me. It tends to be really inconsistent, and I think that's an issue that Marvel had when they launched their Star Wars books, was that they were too bent on trying to make these books look like the real life people, and then you ended up getting some really inconsistent art, which was fixed, I think, when Suit Immerman came on, and it's been better since then. But my main point is that I think when it comes to licensed properties, the reason I tend to have an issue with them, not that it's that majority of them, more often than not, aren't very good. They often are just kind of latching onto a name that people know, and usually names that are put on those books are not the best names, not the best creators at the moment. They're just whoever, and you get a product that is, mediocre often. Not saying it's impossible to have a good book that's from a licensed property. It has happened. It can occur, but more often than not, I find that's not the case.
Well, I have to disagree in IDW's case, because they've had Transformers for God knows how long, and yes, they did screw it up in the beginning, but since I believe it was been about 2010, 2011, with their two main ongoings, the book formerly known as Robots in Disguise, which is now just Transformers, and More Than Meets the Eye, those two books have been doing amazingly well, and the only thing, as far as I can tell, on the Transformers side for IDW that Hasbro really asks them to do is maybe change a title or to incorporate a few toys as character, and it's very rare that happens. They have a whole separate line for movie comics that they did, so it has nothing to do with that on the Transformers. Same thing with Turtles. As far as I know, from talking with the editor Bobby Curnow, talking with the writer Tom Waltz, the only thing, they basically bring ideas to Nickelodeon, and yes, you're right, Nickelodeon does have to sign off on that stuff, but it's been almost 4 or 5 years that the TMNT book has been going, and they started out with a recreation story, or reincarnation story, where Splinter and the Turtles, Hamato Yoshi and his 4 turtles, 4 sons, whatever else, instead of being, 4 turtles in a glass jar getting mutated by Shredder, you have them being killed by him, and then they get reincarnated as the animal selves that we know them as. And the whole storyline progresses and it's a whole love letter to the franchise. It really is. Same thing with, I can't speak G.I. Joe because I haven't read any of the G.I. Joe comics. Same thing with My Little Pony. A lot of that stuff is pretty much, separate from the actual cartoon. The Gem comic came out before there was a friggin' movie, and we haven't had an animated Gem series in 31 years at this point. Yeah, you're right. With certain names, I will agree, but with a lot of the IDW stuff, a lot of the franchise stuff that they're doing, it's not, and they are spreading out to do more creator-owned. Tom Zoller, who I interviewed, he had a 4-issue miniseries called Long Distance. It's basically a story about a long-distance relationship. It's very, very geeky. You've got Ryan Ferrier doing Dave 2. Coming up in April, he's got Hot Damn from IDW. And those are all creator-owned. I just think that you're... Personally, I just think you're... I don't know if it's because you haven't read them, maybe, that you're just shafting the licensed properties at IDW a little bit.
It's more so the history that it's. I have read the Turtle series. I think I'm up to issue like 30, and it's been good, but it's good. It's not the question that like it started was what's the best, or what do I gravitate towards more when it comes to companies, and those stories are good. But they're not to the level of the best sagas, like the best stories for Image. The Saga is the last year, the Fade Out, Deadly Class. Like I just like the amount of amazing titles like Image puts out on a regular basis. Airboy, and the fact that they do it in their original content, And I think that's much harder to do because you're creating a story out of nothing. You have nothing to go off of. You're not recreating or retelling. You're making something original. People scream about it with movies all the time, right? They're yelling and saying,
Right.
why are we getting more reboots and why are we getting more sequels and rehashes and everything like that? That to me is a similar thing with comics. I'm not saying it's impossible to make good stories out of them. I'm saying I'm going to dismiss them outright. What I'm saying is I don't see those licensed properties getting to the level of the best comics going. They're enjoyable. They're fun. I read some. I do read a good amount. Just that when you're looking at the best comics, I don't know if they're there. And I kind of prefer what Boom did, where they have a better mixture. Like, yeah, I'm glad that IDW is moving more towards that. They are getting more creative content, but for a while there, they I can't really think of, what is their, what title would you look at for IDW and say this is their flagship original content title? Because I don't know one. I know you named a few.
They're really that's the thing. Different comic companies have different edicts and different ways about going about it. And IDW, their main thing is the licensed properties. If you look at it and you look at us, as kids of the 80s, they have almost every single 80s comic, cartoon as a comic. Like I mentioned, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Jem, My Little Pony, those are just 5, and it's all different fan bases. You may not get somebody who's reading Turtles to read My Little Pony. You may not get someone who's reading Transformers to read Jem. And they do have... Because they're all about the franchise, I mean, they've done X-Files crossovers, like X-Files meets Transformers, or X-Files. They do all kinds of crossover things that they have... They've done like Angel, the TV show Angel Comics. They've done that kind of stuff. That's their bread and butter, is the license. It's not like Marvel or DC where, DC has the trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, or where Marvel has, let's face it, Marvel's main flagship character for the last 70-odd, 80-odd years has been Spider-Man. But, I mean, they also have others in the X-Men and Wolverine and all that kind of stuff. But most people will agree and say Spidey is their overall flagship character. IDW doesn't have that because they rely on the franchise to be to say, hey, you remember watching that Turtles cartoon in 1987, 88, and you remember how good it was then, but here's a whole different thing where they're not just retelling a Turtles story. They are taking what has been for the last, 32 years at this point, because the original Mirage comics were back in 84, I think. They're taking various things from different things and basically you said you read up to issue 30, so that's the Northampton arc. You're in the middle of Northampton. Okay. If you get to 41 to 44, that's the Attack on Technodrome arc, and it leads up to issue 50, which is the big battle. Issue 44, something happens that no one saw. I'm sure you've seen the news about it. I'm sure you've heard about it, so I don't think this is going to be a spoiler because it was everywhere. Everybody thought they killed Donatello. Everybody thought that, oh my God, Donnie's dead. Holy crap, what the hell? And I'm not going to tell you how it happened or what happened or how he came back, but I mean, and it's not just me having an emotional connection to the Turtles. It is partly that, but I mean, you take that and you take that storyline. Those guys, those creators, made me cry twice. I have never cried over a comic since I've been reading comics since 2012.
What if you didn't have that basis of knowing the Turtles beforehand?
Mm-hmm.
Would that have the same effect on you?
Maybe, I don't know. I couldn't say.
And to give IDW credit, they do also have the top shelf production line, which has a lot of original stuff. Last year they did give release March book 1 or book 2 last year, and that is like legit. I rank that as like my third best book last year. It is done by John Lewis, and it's a great book. But my point more so is, they do all these different titles, they do it in fan bases, and that's fine. It's good that they do that. But I'm personally more impressed, and I gravitate towards more original content because I think I'm going to see something I'm not going to see before. I like that stuff in the 80s, but that's fine.
Yeah.
That's something I enjoyed in the 80s, and maybe I'll read things here and there. I'd rather read a saga. I'd rather read a Deadly Class and see a book that is going to take me in. Like, I have no idea. I don't have a reference point. I respect that more because that's a harder job to do when you're trying to get someone's attention in a world of comics, in a world that is dominated by known properties, and trying to shine through by quality content. And not that licensed properties can't do that as well, but they kind of have almost, in a way, they have an unfair starting point because they have that fan base, but they also, if you're not in that fan base, you're probably not going to be going to that book. And for me, though, the majority of licensed properties, not just IDW, I don't want to pick on them, but even like looking at Marvel, when they do it's kind of licensed, if you want to say, like their movie books, like their movie preview books, their movie tie-in books, they are downright awful because there's little thought put into them. They just, they're not to the same level. They don't put the quality talent on them. Same thing with DC. If they do any movie tie-in stuff, it usually is not very good.
What movies? There hasn't been a DC movie in years. Well,
yeah, we're getting all
come
up
on.
at once.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, it's like, DC. They have, all right, let's look at them. The licensed properties. I mean, they have the whole Vertigo line, which is pretty much all original as far as I know.
Yeah,
like the only series I know from that company that DC had taken over is now DC Vertigo was Coffin Hill. It's basically about witches in Salem, Massachusetts, as far as I know. I want to get to reviewing that this year at some point in the pullback. I will do it before, if it kills me, I will get to that. But DC, DC and Marvel, their main things are their superheroes and stuff. And DC, like I said, does have some licensed stuff. They've had He-Man since 2012, but that just never lasts. Masters of the Universe is, again, also getting the shaft from people because the stories have been good. I just don't think the money is there. I don't think the selling power is there because we had an 8-issue digital series. We had a 6-issue miniseries. We had a 19-issue ongoing from 2013 to 2014 or whatever. Last year we had Eternity War come up. That's just ended, which it only got 15 issues. And you get into DC and you try to see if they're going to tell all new stories or all different stories or try to turn your head or whatever else. And I'm sorry, I am not. This is, again, one of the things that happened on the comments on Talking in Circles 95. I am so not a Scott Snyder fan. I liked Court of Owls. I thought that was great. For the most part, I thought Death of the Family was all right, but the ending to that was just so anticlimactic. Endgame was pretty damn good, but I'm just, you talk about new ideas and new things. Well, with DC and Batman and whatever else, give me a fresh writer. That guy's been writing that shit too long.
Yeah, I disagreed with you on Scott Snyder. I think that the anticlimactic thing, I think that's people being ridiculous because I think the only way to tell a big story is by having some sort of ridiculous big ending where it's more of a personal and more of a character moment, which I prefer. I think that's a better story choice. And I've enjoyed. I haven't read all Scott Snyder stuff. What I have read, I've enjoyed a lot. But like, what? I guess my question, like, I just don't like. Yeah, that stuff is good. What my major point is though, is that if I'm looking at the best of the best of the best when it comes to comics, I don't see any licensed properties getting to that level. I just don't. I don't see them. It's not just that it's new and fresh; it's that it's good. You can take a well-known character, for example, Doctor Strange right now by Jason Aaron. Doctor Strange is a character who's been around forever, but Jason Aaron's just an amazing writer, and he's been able to make that character great again and put out one of the best comics currently going. So it's that for me. It's just how great are your stories, and more if I read 50 licensed comics, my almost guarantee to you is that 35 of them will be god awfully bad. Maybe 10 would be good, and maybe 5 would be really good. But I don't know if I would see any of those, even the ones that are like good, known as good, because for them to reach that level, you need to be able to appeal people that aren't just the core fans, that aren't just the GI Joe fans, that aren't just the Transformers fans, that aren't just the Turtles fans. If you need to be able to, get people that aren't that, and that's usually when Batman's at its best. That's when Spider-Man's at its best, when they're kind of going on all cylinders. And currently, or previously, and I think Turtles is different though, because Turtles is a comic book characters first and foremost. So yeah. I think that's different. To me, when I think licensed properties, I'm not thinking Ninja Turtles. I'm thinking like X-Files, like you mentioned. I'm thinking something that doesn't really seem like a comic book when it comes to it. Like cartoons, like Transformers, make sense because it's not that big of a transition. But when you're taking Star Trek and making that into a comic,
I haven't read a lot of the Star Trek stuff that IDW has done. When Wrath of Khan Redux came out, they had an issue saying, "Oh, hey, this is the aftermath of the hell's the name of that stupid movie?
Into Darkness."
Into Darkness, yeah. They said, "Oh, this is going to be events taking place after what happened in the movie," and there's like one reference to what happened in the movie in the I think it was issue 45 or 4. I don't even know what issue number it was, but I will agree with you on that, and I don't know because I can't speak to the Star Trek stuff because I have not read the Star Trek comic. Talking about the creator-owned stuff, I've recently gotten a lot into the creator, not as much as you have, because I just have, there's too many, you say there's too many movies or there's not enough time to go see movies. There's too many comics, people. one person can't go through everything, and if you do, you're more of an encyclopedia. You're more robot than man at that point. But recently I found Dave. Dave is a series that originally started at Monkey Brain Comics and came over to IDW. IDW didn't want to. Ryan Ferrier, the writer, thought, "Oh yeah, they just want to put out the trade." No, they put out the first series, 5-issue run, because the original Dave series is 5 issues, and this is a story about what happens if robots destroy humanity. And then they live on planet Earth. They then, because at that, it's set in the, future and whatever else. So at that point, they have all the internet stuff and whatever else. And they're like, oh, they start to become like humans. They did Dave 2, which was the sequel series. The first series is kind of like robots took over the world. Now there's going to be an alien invasion. And the second series is pretty much dealing with more emotional storylines than anything else. I really think you'd like those 2 series. I am getting into some Boom stuff. Boom just launched, or will be launching in, I think, March or April. I forget when issue 1 comes up, but they did just launch Power Rangers number 0.
I did actually read that. See,
yeah, I like the main story. I like 2 of the writers on the series, Kyle Higgins and Margaret Scott. I know I've read a lot of both of their stuff. And I do remember when I did interview Kyle way back when, I think 3 years ago at this point, I did ask him if there was any book, any series, any license, anything that he would want to write, what would it be? And he did say Power Rangers, so it's kind of funny that he is now writing Power Rangers. My only issue with the 0 issue for Power Rangers from Boom is they start off with the main story, and it's darker than what the show is, which is fine with me. Every Power Rangers fan for the last 20-odd years now has been craving for a darker Power Rangers thing. which is fine. The Adventures of Bulk and Skull as a separate story is fine. That third story, though, that was just weird because it felt like the art style was all off. It felt like, oh, what are they doing now? Is this another part of the Higgins story? And it's not. It's some other thing.
I don't think they're going to be doing that for every issue. I don't know for sure, but
God, I hope not.
But I don't know. To me, like those, I tend to often with those, I tend not to read if there's additional stories. Very rarely, because I do that a lot with annuals. Actually, I'm reading Archie right now, which is quite good, with Mark Waid and Fiona Staples. And at the end of each book, they have like a classic Archie that kind of corresponds with the issue that they just did. And I tend not to read it. Like I'm reading what this is. That extra stuff is great, but it's like, yeah, I tend not to go with it. But mostly for me, like right now, like I said, it's just I'm going towards creators like anything Jonathan Hickman's doing. I'm tend to going. Jason Aaron right now is I think kind of on fire, and he is doing licensed properties. Like I guess Star Wars, And I've been reading Star Wars. I didn't like it at first. I thought it's gotten a lot better like I mentioned, when the art's kind of gotten a lot better and it got into Vader Down, which picked it up. But a lot of the miniseries have been kind of hit and miss. Like Lando wasn't very good. Leia was okay, but
Leia was. I'm sorry. I know everybody and their uncle and sister and brother love Mark Waid, but I'm sorry. I only made it through 3 out of the 5 issues on Leia. Leia was horrible.
I wouldn't say it was horrible. I thought.
Oh my God. By the 3rd issue, first 2 issues I thought were great. I thought it was an interesting storytelling from her point of view and all that stuff. But by the 3rd, I don't even remember what the hell happened in the 3rd issue. But it just I'm not even finishing this. The Vader story, I found it to be when it first started. The first 3 issues were really good. Issue 4 and 5, it felt like Gillian had either done something to the writing or I don't know. It felt like it was all disjointed. And by issue 6, it was back on target. And I think I've read up to issue 9. I still have to catch up on that one. That's one I have to catch up on.
That one has always been kind of back and forth to me, and mostly I felt like it was a series that maybe should have been a mini series, and then it's gone on too long. But once you started doing the Vader Down, which was like really an extended action sequence, but it worked well. It was fun enough.
For those that don't know, Vader Down was the big crossover they did between the Darth Vader title and the main Star Wars book.
Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Vader was down on a planet, and they tried to attack him. So that's pretty much. But yeah, so I guess like the takeaway, what I'm saying, I'm not, just to clarify for people, I'm not saying just because you're a licensed property you're bad, I don't respect you, or I won't read your title, because I do. I'm just saying that great writers, I don't think you get great writers who maybe want to do a licensed property here and there, but I think most of them rather kind of create their own stuff, or or write for an iconic character here and there. But that's why I think Image has been kicking butt so much, because it feels like every week they're putting out a new #1 issue for a miniseries that is great. They feel like they're doing like the HBO model, where they're a lot of their books are only going 4 issues, 6 issues, but that's kind of the story they're telling, and then they're moving on to something else. So you're not getting those prolonged stories that go on for years. They have a couple of those, but I just think there's such an abundance of. It's insane. Like, it's a golden age right now, I think, of independent comics, IDW included. Valiant too is kicking butt, I think. Like, I'm really impressed with what they're doing, building their universe and how it's connected, but not completely tied into with one another, just connected enough. And they've been doing a lot of great stuff as well. So I think there is, like you mentioned, just an overabundance of really great comics out there. It's hard to keep up.
I also want to mention Zenoscope Entertainment. They are, and Lionforge as well, Lionforge Comics. Zenoscope, basically, they do the Grimm fairy tale stories. And they take the classic Grimm fairy tale characters, but they put them in all original story. Like, they're not retelling. They're not fully, like, you're not going to see a comic adaptation of the 1991 Kevin Costner Prince of Thieves Robin Hood.
No.
But I'm saying you're not going to see that with them. Yes, they do have a Robin Hood character, but it's, I spent 5 weeks last July going through the first part of the Robin Hood story. I even interviewed the writer, Pat Shand. It's a female. They do have Sherwood Forest, and they do have that kind of thing, and they do have certain things, but it's moved away and it's become its own evolving story. They do have similar characters and character names to what we already know, but it's not even close to anything of the actual male Robin Hood story that people have read or seen the Disney movie. Or it's just so Zenescope is doing great things with their Grimm Fairy Tales characters. That's a company that I will be getting more into as I can, because they have Wizard of Oz stuff, they have Red Riding Hood stuff, and it's real. Like they just started. You know, you talk about a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. They just launched Red Agent. It's Brittany Waters' Red Riding Hood, and she is going to be working for some super secret. It's basically a Mission Impossible type of thing, but with a fairy tale character instead of Tom Cruise. And it's only had 1 issue to this point. It's supposed to be a 5-issue series, and it's really well written, and the art is really, really good. Lion Forge, I've read their Knight Rider stuff. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, again, it's a licensed property. It's a known property. Everybody should know by now. If you don't, I did a whole podcast reviewing all 3 Knight Rider television shows. That middle show, oh, God, Team Knight Rider, no. But anyway, the story that they're telling in the Knight Rider comic at Lion Forge, it's kind of twists the origins and whatever else, but they're continuing to write it fresh as well. Going back to Boom and Ryan Ferrer, it just came out, the first issue. It's called Kennel Block Blues. It's basically, imagine if Prison Break was with animals.
Yeah, I saw that. I've actually picked it up. I haven't read it yet, but
Oh my God, it is so good. I loved every second of it. It's awesome. It's like Prison Break meets Cats and Dogs. Thank God there's no Jeff Goldblum character in this, though.
Yeah, and I guess another one to mention too. This is kind of more to something else, but Aftershock Comics, which just kind of debuted last April or 2015. Yeah, last April. Mm-hmm. They've started off with some crazy talent, like Garth Ennis is running for them, and he's doing a few things. Last month I read 2 great books from them, American Monster and Flying Eagles, or sorry, not Flying Eagles, but Dreaming Eagles. And they only have like 5 books right now, but they're on their way, I think, to being something if they can kind of get their momentum going. But yeah, like with all these things you're mentioning and like other ones that are out there, I think what you're also seeing are some of the best writers aren't necessarily always writing for Marvel or always writing for DC. They are kind of able to go to these smaller companies and write whatever they want, create these crazy stories like a dog that's in prison, like Prison Break, and do that where you maybe not have had that before, where when you had Marvel and DC having such a dominant kind of hold in the industry, you didn't get a lot of that nearly as much, or it was harder to find. But with today and things like Comixology and online comics, you can get access to it. You don't have to worry about your store having it or not having it or not ordering it, and you can get it instantly. I think it's been a huge reason why you're getting a lot of this independent comics kind of expanding further and further.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, just even going onto Comixology's website, there's no way you can look. Just looking at everything they have. They have thousands and thousands of titles. You can search by publisher, you can search by title, you can search by all this stuff. You can search by creator, but going back to Image, 2 of the series that I love from them were Cowl and Chew, and I have not had a chance to go back and read more Chew lately at all. But I wish Cowl would have stayed on a little bit longer, but I get it. They ended the story, and that's fine for now. And Kyle Higgins has said he'll come back to it eventually. He's launching a new series from Image this summer called Hadron's Wall. It's kind of like a space type of story as far as I can remember. Gail Simone is going to be working with Image. I don't know exactly when. I thought this was supposed to have already come out. It might not be out yet. It's called Crosswind. I remember when they did Image Expo 2015, the end of last year, they're like, hey, Gail Simone's coming to Image, and it's going to be called Crosswind, and it's basically going to be, what if a hitman and a housewife have a Freaky Friday moment? Quite literally, that's what it is. That's the way they explained it. A hitman and a housewife switch bodies.
Nice.
So, yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a clear-cut winner when creator-owned versus licensed.
No, I don't think necessarily there whatever will be. I think it's just...
Yeah.
Well, I think the clear cut is creator-owned. But anyways, but it's obviously for personal preference. And I get, like, especially if it's a licensed property that doesn't really exist anywhere else, or you don't have a really good G.I. Joe cartoon right now, so the cartoons or the comics the next best thing. I get that, but I think eventually, like, the problem you'll see with licensed properties is, look what happened to Dark Horse and Star Wars. It can be taken away from you. So that's
I seriously doubt Disney is going to buy Hasbro.
You seriously doubt they'll buy anything at this moment in time? I'm pretty sure.
No. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that I just seriously doubt Disney is going to buy Hasbro or going to buy Nickelodeon or going to buy whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know the mouse has deep pockets, but I mean, come on now.
Yeah, but it may not be Disney, but it could be, it could be someone else, or that company could go bankrupt. And there's the talk of a Hasbro and Toy Biz.
No, not Toy Biz. They bought out Toy Biz. No, it's Hazmat. It's gonna be Hasbro Mattel merging. Oh God! If that happens, as long as they get rid of Digital River as their online shop for Mattel, that'll be fine.
Yeah. See, that's kind of the risk. If like a merger like that happens, that can affect a digital comic or a licensed property. So now that licensed property you're listing could now no longer be owned anymore. So now it's going to a different company, and that's always troubling. Or you can be like,
hey, it'll be fine with me if He-Man goes to IDW and somebody picks it up. And don't get me wrong, the He-Man stories have been great. They just don't last long enough, because I don't think DC puts enough faith in them, honestly.
I think a lot of times what you see is that for some properties, they just create a story to keep the IP, keep the copyright going, and then they're done with it, and then they move on for the next 6 months, whatever they have to do. So,
yeah. Did you see what they're doing with Scooby-Doo now?
Oh yeah, all the Hanna-Barbera stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know I'm supposed to be outraged, but I really just don't care.
Well, I'm just like, face palming. I don't really care either way. What I did like about their Scooby-Doo stuff that they have at DC is the Scooby-Doo Team Up series, where you have him and the gang teaming up with like Jetsons and the Flintstones, and several different times they've teamed up with the Justice League, and there was a couple issues where they teamed up with Teen Titans. There's, I think, 2 issues where they team up with Secret Squirrel. Like, I like that kind of stuff, because again, it's the Hanna-Barbera, it's the DC characters with Scooby, because that's obviously what Scooby movies were way back in the day and everything else. But I'm just not sure of a radical redesign on the Scooby Gang is what we need at this point.
You don't need Shaggy looking like a hipster barista. That's not.
Yeah, no. I don't need Shaggy smoking a joint while serving coffee at Starbucks.
I don't know, but I gotta say, I think the Wacky Racers looking like Mad Max could be kind of cool. I think that could actually be that can actually work out. But I think people freak out about that type of stuff. And here's the thing: if it's not successful, it'll go away and it'll come back like you originally liked it. I know people were freaking out because Archie was getting rebooted, and they were doing different stories, and like, how can you do that? And then the book ended up being really good. So just because like the appearance may be striking, I know the Flintstone one looks really weird. I'm not saying it's going to be good, but like I tend to like, let's just see, and if it stinks, it'll go away, and they'll bring back the classic one. It's not, it'll be like the new Coke all over again, but it'll be like new Scooby Doo. But
yeah, I mean, I don't have like a freak out reaction to that kind of stuff. The one freak out reaction I had about, and this is actually DC's own character, DC's own title that they changed, was Batgirl. It just pissed me off so much. Like, I get it. They wanted to have her do a brighter thing and whatever else, but uh, to me, when Gail Simone was writing Batgirl was when Batgirl was at her best of the modern day. And yes, Batgirl, while Gail was writing it, was very, very dark, but she had even said she had plans to make it lighter and whatever else. Then all of a sudden, Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher come in and basically say, hey, here's Batgirl Teeny Bopper book. No, thank you. And Gotham Academy, don't even get me started. It's the U.S. version of Hogwarts. Ugh.
I think sometimes you got to recognize that it's okay if they. I think it's a smart move for comic books, to be honest with you, because for so long, comic books tended to appeal to one type of audience, one type of tone, and one type of reader, and I think they're realizing that there are more women read than men. And for such a long time, comic books kind of ignored that fact, and they didn't make books that were female-centric, or if they were female-centric, it was very much geared towards the, to the guy mentality. But I think those books have been good. Like Unbeatable Squirrel Girl for Marvel has been really good. I have not read a lot of Batgirl, but I thought it's been fine. I think it's going for something that's different, but like you just were saying with Batman, you want something fresh and new. Well, then you get something fresh and new, and you're like, but I like the old one better.
Yeah, well, yeah, but see, this the thing. I'll tell you about that off air. That's behind the scenes stuff that should not be aired on the show. But it's one of those things where I was liking the direction of where Gail was taking it, and then all of a sudden she's no longer on the book, and it's like
she's coming back to do Birds of Prey book, I think now, and I know with the whole Rebirth they're doing a lot of different things. I think when I read their Nightwing's being Nightwing again and all that stuff, but
yeah, that was I still can't find a new that was leaked. The Nightwing thing was leaked. I think it was my buddy Scanner 51 said something on Twitter about that.
They published an article regarding it. They had it was a lot.
Well, I couldn't even find the article because it had to have been a leak, because I searched Nightwing new comic series 2016. I searched every different thing that I could when Scanner 51 on Twitter said that to me, and I could find nothing, not even the Bleeding Cool article. So if anyone can find that for me, that'd be great, because I'd like to at least see what the thing said. I mean, I'm glad they're bringing Nightwing back. I think it was a damn shame that they had to get rid of him in the first place, and that's another whole other story thing. But I mean, yeah, I'll. Like I said, right now, for my creator-owned tastes, like I said, I'm going to be reading Kennel Block Blues from Boom, which is only going to be a 4-issue series. I'm reading more of the Xenoscope stuff. I know, was it you or was it Chuck or Greg that mentioned I Hate Fairyland? I forget who mentioned that.
Greg and I both did. It's Scotty Young, who I pretty much love anything Scotty Young does.
Yeah, I do want to check that out as well.
I think you'll like that because it is like a more mature version of Crazy Looney Tunes cartoon. So,
oh boy. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff, and there's just so much there's so many things that I've been meaning to get to that I just haven't gotten to. Last 2 years we've been doing Marvelous March. I don't even think I'm doing Marvelous March this year. I don't know. I pretty much had it with Spider-Man, honestly. I have not read any of the new stuff since it went from Superior back to Amazing. So I'm not going to sit here and judge it, but I will say that I've read and seen enough Peter Parker stories that at least with Doc Ock in Peter's body, it was more refreshing than anything else. I do know they had that. Was it a 1 or 2 issue series for Renew Your Vows? I don't even know. Was it a 2-shot or a
4-issue? I think it was for Secret Wars. That was around, but currently, right now, the Amazing Spider-Man. I haven't been a big fan of the current Amazing Spider-Man, mostly because that is actually a book he's not even Spider-Man right now. He's more like a pseudo Tony Stark Iron Man. But they are now just released this week, which I haven't read yet. They're bringing Miles Morales, which I'm excited because one thing Bendis does do Spider-Man really well, so that has a possibility of being really good.
Yep. All right, folks, let us know in the comments of this episode whether you are for creator-owned or licensed properties, or if you're for both, or whatever. Coming up, we've got Fiendship is Friendship February. It's going to be all pony comics all February long. Somebody shoot me now.
You're a brave soul.
Yeah. Just, hey, Laughing Boy, 1 bullet left. I know. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Oh, hi, Pinkie Pie.
This is your singing telegram. I hope it finds you well. You're invited to a party because we think you're really swell. Gummy turning 1 year old, so help us celebrate. The cake will be delicious, the festivities first rate. There will be games and dancing, pop for apples, cut a rug. And when the party's over, we'll gather round for a group hug. No need to bring a gift, being there will be enough. Birthdays mean having fun with friends, not getting lots of stuff. It won't be the same without you, so we hope that you say yes. So please, oh please, RSVP and come and be our guest. Next time, I think I'll just pass out written invitations.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.